I'm going to talk about the display system that is in use here. I have spent well over 3 years and over 1,000 hours developing this, all volunteer time. I don't charge anybody for any of the software or anything. The hardware costs about $400 for a museum to buy, and that includes a touchscreen monitor. And they have 3 of them here. They got a grant for it from the, if there are other museums that are interested in it and they can't get a grant, I'll donate the money if they're a 501c3 nonprofit. So, but it takes a lot of work on the part of the museum to provide the information that this thing massages. Okay, why I developed it? At the Railroad Club in Hendersonville, where I was a volunteer, they had a lot of items on display. And so I thought, gee, it'd be nice if we had something that we could tell them about it so we don't have to be, you know, the guys there want to run trains. They don't want to be running around telling the visitors all about the items there. And this way they'd have a machine that would actually provide that kind of information. The initial system that I built was, I'll talk about that, and it's still in use there at the museum, but it had some deficiencies. And then I'm going to talk about the present system, and I'm going to talk about the ongoing cost to a museum. And it's not in dollars, it's just in work. And the criteria for any other museum that wants it to be successful. Okay, why I developed it? Well, not all docents know everything about every item in the museum. I volunteered at a railroad museum in Atlanta for 15 years. My wife and I both volunteered. Where they actually had real rail cars, and I actually learned to run one of their diesel engines, the full-size diesel engines, and so I learned a lot about railroad artifacts there. And then I went to when I joined the Railroad Club, I ended up either being the assistant or the head of the artifacts group. And so I learned a lot more because I did the one that did all the research for all the items in order to enter them into that display system at the time. Okay. No docent, knows everything about everything, okay? If they do, that's great, but very few do, and so it helps them because they can show somebody what the item is and there's some description of it, so they learn themselves for the next time, and they can provide their insight as well as what the person sees. It also allows visitors to help themselves. Everybody knows there are only so many docents, and if a docent is busy talking with a visitor, and you walk in and you have a question about an item, you got to wait until the docent is free. Well, if you have a system that you can look that up, that tells you most of what you want, then that makes it a lot easier for you. Okay, I developed it because I wanted an easy way to update the information. Okay, you have a lot of items and you want to now move one item from one room to another. That's a problem. You have to, because everything is location based. If you want to be able to find it, if you have new items, you got to be able to add those new items. If you have old items that you've gotten rid of, then or that you have loaned out to another museum, that's a problem because you need to be able to tell people there's no way to see it. But I have pictures of it and I have information about it. Okay. It provides documentation on the items. So if all your items are in there, you could just go up to the system and you can find out very easily looking at the picture, you can say, oh yeah, that's the item I'm talking about. Well, what's the item number? Oh, I got the item number now. What's the description? And what other information do we have about it? And you could get easy access to all that. And I was looking to build a low-cost, simple system, something that an ordinary museum can maintain, even if they're not computer experts. Okay, so as I mentioned, docents may be busy with other visitors. They don't know everything about it. It's a learning opportunity. And the big one I think here too is that you can't show people something that's not on display. If it's back in storage, there's no way to show it to them. However, you can't show them pictures of it, and so they have an idea of what it is and what you have. And maybe in the future, when it goes on display, then you just mark it as being on display, and now you have it, they could see it. Visitors may want to see, well, what kind of items do you have? You know, do you have, in the case of railroad museum, do you have lanterns? You know, how many lanterns do you have? What kinds of lanterns do you have? You have an opportunity to see what's not visible, and by not visible, you can't see if the item's on the wall. How do you see the back of it? Okay, so a lot of items have information on the back. Some of the items that are hanging on the wall, you can't read, they're too high up. So if you look at that certificate up there on the wall with those little tiny coupons on it, you can't read that, not unless you really have great vision or a pair of binoculars, okay? And you want to see close-ups of it, you can see close-ups of it, okay? The visitors can easily find an item by the picture. So, you know, they see something and they say, you know, how do I get information on it? They just look for the picture of it. And it'll show them the pictures of all the items. They don't want to ask stupid questions. Some people think that, you know, look, I don't know a lot about this. What do you use that for? You know, and they're too embarrassed to ask. Well, you know, it's easy to ask a machine, and it shows you what it is, and so now you learn a little bit about it, than it is to be embarrassed about asking people, okay? Visitors might want to scan some items. They want to look for what you have in the way of different types of items, okay? And they might want to get more information than anyone knows about it. Okay, we want easy update. We want to be able to, you know, add, remove items, update pictures and descriptions, change locations, or add more information about an item. This system, basically, if you have more pictures or different pictures, because you like the different pictures better, you add it into the system, and the system rebuilds the whole display on its own. Okay. It tells you the item number, where is it supposed to be, what does it look like? You know, if you're trying to do an inventory and you don't even know what the item looks like because the description is not very good, you know, if the description says lantern and you got 5 lanterns, okay, it's not very helpful to figure out which lantern you're talking about. Okay. Is it the right one among similar ones? What is it, and how, when, where was it used? Okay, so that kind of information could all be in the display system. Okay, mine is a low cost and simple system. I'm going to talk about some existing systems, mention them, and then I'll talk about, and of course, I'll spend the time on mine. Okay, professional costs for systems for big museums cost in the thousands of dollars. Okay, that's to get the initial copy of it. Okay, then of course, if you want, you want us to keep it up to date and fix all the patches and bugs and stuff like that. Oh, that's additional cost. There's a monthly charge for that. You want help on doing things? Oh, that's an additional charge. Okay, so, you know, if you have a big museum, if you're the Smithsonian, you can afford things like that. You can even afford to build and do that stuff yourself because you can hire professionals to do it. But a small museum can't afford that. Okay, customization costs, hardware costs are high. You have to have a professional staff to manage things. Okay. It's designed for museums with big money, and you rarely get the license to the source of the information. So the code that was used to develop it, the source of that code is all in that system. So if I died tomorrow, if you found a person that knows how to work with the operating system Linux, and there's a lot of young people that know that, okay, you can get them, they can look at that, and they know what they're doing. Okay. So, and if you can get them to volunteer, it doesn't cost you anything, okay? And they can edit it, and if you have somebody that can edit it, wants to add some features that I haven't put in, then you could do that. Okay, it uses Linux, which is a free operating system comparable to Windows, and this is the system that's running on there now. It's public domain. Means there's no cost. Okay, all the software upgrades, no cost. Unlike Windows, where you have to buy the upgrades, or you get the upgrades, but then you buy a maintenance service or whatever. All upgrades are free, indefinitely. Okay, and they'll run on the oldest of computers. So the same software that runs on here runs on all the most of the previous models. Okay, this uses a high performance system than the old one was, but the newer version of it was no cost to update it to the new version.
Who owns Linux?
I'm sorry?
Who owns Linux?
Nobody owns Linux. It's in the public domain. It's maintained by volunteers. There are thousands, literally thousands and thousands of people that write the code, update it, fix things. I've talked to developers. It's a program that I used in the previous version of the thing that didn't do quite what I wanted to. I emailed the guy that developed it. He says, a week later he wrote back to me. He said, I've included it, try it out. It'll be in the next revision of the next update that comes out. Okay, that's the kind of things. People do it for the love of doing it, just like I did this for the love of it. My software, all the system software upgrades are no cost. My software, I did this thing as a volunteer. Okay. When I'm gone, it's free to anybody. Even before I'm gone, it's free to anybody. Okay? The license for all that stuff, there is no license cost. It's all free. I'm willing to customize it. I've customized it a number of times for Mike when they've asked for features. I've even come up with some features and said, hey, would you like to have this feature? And they said, oh yeah, we'd like to have that. So I did it. And if there were other museums that had that kind of system, then I would then turn around and tell them I've got an upgrade that does this for them. Okay, that someone else thought of, and now I've incorporated. And if you want to incorporate that in yours, okay. The hardware is low cost, even with a touchscreen monitor, which is the most expensive item. It's about $200. The total cost is under $400. The ongoing cost to the museum for having this thing is not in dollars, because there is no cost, unless the hardware breaks, in which case you buy a replacement. If the monitor breaks, you buy a new monitor. If your computer breaks, it's $80 for that computer. Okay. So it was originally built, the initial system was built for the Apple Valley Model Railroad Club. It used the tools of the time, okay? So I used what tools I had available. I found limitations in the design in that it was very hard to move things around and change it, because it was basically based on web pages and that all were custom written. I custom wrote about 150 web pages by writing the basic code of web pages, because I had no development program. Now there's programs that will develop web pages for you. There wasn't back then. So I did it by hand, okay, from my knowledge from the early 90s when I first started using web browsers, when they first came out, okay. There was no search capability. So you couldn't go searching for things. I've put in a search capability in this one. The limitations, use individually web pages, difficult to add, modify, delete, difficult to move. Maintainability of the data was very difficult. Maintainability of the software was too difficult to me because I didn't do a good job of documenting all. This one is fully documented. There were no naming conventions. The idea of a naming convention is that you want to associate the picture with the item and with the documentation. So I came up with I came up with a convention that the picture, the item number, and the documentation all use the same name. And it was too much information was integrated and not changeable. Now I modularized everything. So I pulled everything out that did not have to be in the code, so that if we wanted to change the size of the screen, okay, it was very easy. I could go into one place, tell it the size of the screen, and that changes everything. Okay, so there was no need to go into every single place and do that. Okay, it took me 3+ years and over 1,000 hours of my work. That was to bring out the initial copy of this thing that went live. When did that go live? April? Yeah, and since then I've updated a number of times. Mike and Mary saluted. I screwed that up. It's SDM. Okay. That was Southeastern Railway Museum. I got it mixed up. Yeah. They took all those pictures, wrote the more than 100 information pages, helped me debug issues, and they really did the real testing. They did the live testing. Okay, as somebody that's not familiar with it, that doesn't say, "Oh, I intuitively know what to do." They did it without intuitively knowing it, and when they found it difficult to do, I realized I had to make changes in the thing, document it better or whatever. Okay, and so they did the real reality testing. The administrating the software to build a system is self-building. You provide it with the data, and it goes and builds the files, the sizes that it needs. For the pictures, it uses 3 different size pictures. It organizes them all, and it knows to put them in the different places because they're different locations. It keeps track of the locations. It keeps track of the documents. It converts the documents into a common format. Okay. And for visitors and docents, it's viewing only. So they don't have a keyboard. They don't have a mouse. They just have a touch screen so they can touch things, but they cannot get into the system. It is a secured system. Okay, so I put in security software in there to lock it down. Okay, so it builds itself from a spreadsheet. If you know what, if you ever used Excel spreadsheets, okay, that's basically what it uses. The system verifies the data, looks to make sure that you don't put letters in when you're supposed to have an item number, that you don't have too many words that won't fit inside for the description of it. Okay, looks to make sure your locations are valid, so you don't put something as in a location that doesn't exist. Okay, it allows you to test before installation. So on the system, it will actually allow you to test the system and verify it. And if you say yes, it's working, then you say, okay, install it, and it will then install itself in the runtime environment. Okay, so if you find out, oops, that's not working, you don't have to undo anything. For the runtime user, it's the old system that they've always used. Okay, there are a lot of tools. It's very Windows-like Linux, so there's a very similar type of tools, for doing things. And that has an Office product built in that you don't have to pay for Microsoft for. In fact, that's what this is running, their version of PowerPoint. Okay, it takes minimal input information. It mostly just asks you questions. Do you want me to continue? I found this problem. Do you want to still, build the system, or do you want to just quit and go fix the problem? Okay, on a spreadsheet, it uses only 3 columns: the item number, the location, and a short description. Okay, every picture is named after the item, and it has to be at least 2 megabytes in size. I mean, these things will take things up to 20 and 40 megabytes of when you take a photo. So that's not asking that much. And then it's going to convert it to smaller ones automatically. It'll take most image formats. So you have formats made by, on a Mac, the default formats on on Windows, default formats on Linux, default formats of the picture. Okay. It'll auto resize it. Okay, and if you want, depending upon how big you want the smaller pictures, and we'll talk about it later, you could just say, I want them to be this size, and when you build it builds them to that size, you know, so. And it takes, uses a single description page per item, and then you just provide a PDF file. You can make a PDF file on Microsoft Word. You can make a PDF file on the Office product that comes with this. And that's all it is, just a one-page description. You can have pictures in the description file, just like you can in a Word file. Okay, no keyboard or touchscreen for the visitor docent. There's an introductory window. There's an auto timeout, so that if a person starts doing things and then just walks away and it's in one of the menus, okay, it all of a sudden, after 2 minutes of non-activity, it will come up, or almost 2 minutes, it gives them about 15 seconds to either hit a button or it's going to quit, and it keeps warning them down till the time, and then boom, it resets itself back to the main page automatically. You can search by item numbers or description. That's the latest, one of the latest features I put in there. So if you want to look for all the lanterns, you can put in the word lantern, and it'll tell you where all the item numbers of all the lanterns and where they're located and what the description is for each one of them. And then you can select one of those and say, I want to look at that one. Okay. You can select a location. There are three types of locations. Okay, a location that has one of the display systems. So in here, there's one of the locations would be Suite A. This is Suite A. Okay, then there's Suite B and there's Suite C. And then there are locations that could be in the system that you want to display on every system. There would be items that are like out on the deck where there is no system. You want those to be displayed. They'll be displayed on every system. Okay. If they're in storage, you want it to be displayed, it'll be displayed on every system. The third one is ones that you don't want to be displayed at all. So you want to keep it in your spreadsheet, but you don't want to show it. It may be that you can't find it. Okay, you haven't figured out where it went. Okay, you used to have it, so you can't say where it is. So you don't want to show them people things and say this item's missing. You know, we lose our items here. You know, that doesn't sound good. Okay, so you can put locations that are non-existent, and it just won't display those things. And you can if you view item in a location, you can select the item, see the pictures, read the description, or view any picture. And we'll show you more about that after. Okay, the documentation. So these are the 6 documents that I provide, and they're actually on the system. And so you can print out copies of them. Multi-page, well documented, and I'm constantly updating every time I make a change or anytime I find something that's not clear. Somebody says, hey, you know, I don't understand how to do this. I've got pictures on how to do things, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? And all the code that I wrote, all the programs I've written are in the program itself. There's a lot of documentation. So any person that knows that type of code can go in there and say, oh, this is what John did, and this is why he did it. So if they want to make some changes or upgrades, they can do that. Okay, ongoing museum costs, okay? The hardware, if it breaks, as I mentioned, okay, you have to maintain a spreadsheet of accurate locations. If you don't keep it, that was the problem at the Railroad Club. Once I left, there was nobody updating anything. So if they moved things, that information never got changed. And so it was out of date. So the museum needs to keep it up to date. Okay? They need to take up, you know, one minimum of 1 picture of the item, and you can have up to 3 more. They could be, you might want to have close-ups, you might want to have pictures of the back of the item, you might want to have pictures of the bottom of the item. Okay, if it's a book, you might want to open up the book and take a sample page. Okay, so any kind of pictures of things that you can't see that part of. Nothing worse than you're going into a museum and you see this item on the wall, and on the back of it is this handwritten thing by the original person that did the picture. You know, but you can't see that, okay? So you just simply take a photo of it and it'll show up, okay? You have to write and update the description pages for items. So when you get an item in, you need to write up a description page. If you get more information about the item, you find out new information about it, you really need to update that thing. Somebody comes into the museum and says, oh, no, this wasn't used over here, this was used over there, or this was also used here, or whatever information they might have. You can write that down, put that on the description page, and update the system with that new information. Okay, and you need to rebuild and install the new display software in the system, and it's just a matter of, it self-runs, it just takes time. Okay. I'll be here.
Well, thank you so much.
No
You know
problem.
how much we appreciate you. This is for Dale. This is for Dale putting up with us so much.
This will be donated to
No.
charity.
Take that.